Welcome to the OMAD Revolution channel. In an effort to remake what was a basic presentation on how to eat one meal a day, or OMAD, the video I made a long time ago, I wanted to start again, and this time do an augmentation of that. Whereas the first one was the basic OMAD plan, this is the advanced OMAD plan. It doesn't matter how you found me. It doesn't matter if you've been a subscriber since the beginning and you've been with us from the start, or you are just joining us. The point is you're here and you're about to get the information to embark on a journey that is going to enhance your life in one way or another, if not in all. You'll notice cute little polar bears there having a feast. The bear has always been my favorite animal and the OMAD mascot. And in this video, I've decided to do all polar bears. Not that that really matters. Regardless of why you are here, we're so very glad to have you. And here we go. Let's begin. Let's talk about the initial preparations for one meal a day. I want to take plenty of time here because very often the troubles people run into come from misunderstandings from the outset. This is a time, number one, to assess your goals. By assess your goals, I mean you need to ask yourself, what are the reasons for why you are fasting? One meal a day is the ultimate fasting tool, the ultimate fasting application. But what is your weight loss background? If indeed you have found this channel to lose weight, and I'm going to assume for the purposes of this video that it is, what is your background? This is very important because the reasons for why you're doing what you're doing is going to say a lot. If you're fasting for spiritual reasons, this is going to be a different journey for you. It's not going to be a journey of absolutes. It's going to be a journey of just simple adjustments. And this is going to be an important thing for you to consider. But what is your weight loss background? The reason this is so important is many people find OMAD after they've had years of failed diets. Their body is in a terrible state of disrepair. Their metabolism is run down and their morale is low because they feel extremely frustrated with failed results and basically a lack of wisdom on how to proceed. This is what makes things so very difficult so much of the time. And as a result of this, it's important that you look at your background. Now, how does that factor into the weight loss portion? If you've been dieting already, you've already lost all your water weight, you've already lost all of your initial weight that people sometimes forget about. If you've already been dieting, you lost all your water weight. When you start fasting, you're going to have already done that. It doesn't matter how you've done it, your body's going to respond in kind. So this is the important time to take and assess your goals. Why are you doing what you're doing? And with that, what are you doing? How serious is this going to be? Do you have any idea of what you're actually getting into? Hopefully, this presentation will make all of that much more clear. Number two, get a full blood workup. This is the perfect time to go to your doctor and or physician or medical healthcare provider and use that insurance clause that gives you a free preventative checkup. As long as you don't mention a condition, most people with insurance can go to their doctor and the doctor is going to not even charge you a copay for it. You just go right in there and they're going to run your blood levels. They're going to look at your blood labs. So this is the perfect time to do this. Now that you're about to make a major change in your life that could very well define the rest of your life, you're going to be in a perfect spot to do that right now. Why would you wait? Besides, if down the road you find yourself in a situation where your health is better or worse, you'll be able to look at your blood labs and say, here's where I know I was before I started OMAD. Now, I had a blood lab when I started my journey, but it was some time before I started. And it wasn't, I would love to have followed my own advice here when I started and done this right the first time, but I didn't. But this is an opportunity for you. And again, it's like Warren Buffett says, let my mistakes be your mistakes. Or let my mistakes not be your mistakes, because if I've made the mistakes, I've made them for you. You don't have to make them. So pay attention very carefully. But this is also a time to address any other health problems that do present themselves. So let's say you go in for a blood test and you find out there's something going on in your body. I give some examples here of cautions, basically, addressing other health issues. Sometimes people attempt to do one meal a day and they're underweight. Well, you don't want to do that if you're severely underweight. You want to be honest about where you want to be. And we're going to get to that in the next step. If you are anemic, you're low on blood levels, doing a fast may not be the ideal thing for you. Now, there's different reasons and different degrees to which people can be anemic. Anemic, for instance, anemia can be a thing that a woman experiences during a certain time of the month for different reasons, but sometimes just for that. So not all of these are deal breakers, but you do need to take this time and assess where you're at. Are you pregnant or nursing? You can fast when you're pregnant or nursing, but you shouldn't be in a calorie deficit. Know not to be at a calorie deficit in certain conditions. And that's pretty much what I'm driving at here in step 2. Go to the doctor, get your blood work done. And one thing I did not mention in Assess Your Goals, I am not responsible for your well-being. This amounts to a disclaimer, but I'm going to give it anyway, and I'm not big on disclaimers because it sounds very disingenuous. Ultimately, you're responsible for your own health. I know so many people, they don't go in to get their A1C checked, their cholesterol checked. They just don't do it. Their thyroid, they've never had a test. They're thirsty all the time and they're urinating, which is a pre-diabetic syndrome. They don't go in and get it tested. They act like everything is going to be just fine. This is all the truer, or all the more true, if you're over 40. You need to make sure that you're using this opportunity. But even if you're not, to make sure that you're getting your test results and your blood workups. And then when you've got the clear, you've got the all clear, move ahead. Number 3, get set up and weigh yourself. Do an initial weigh-in. Be prepared to weigh weekly thereafter. Now, let's talk about the initial weigh-in. This is the most fun weigh you will ever have because you know you're going in fatter than you'll ever be. So it doesn't matter if you're weighing in the middle of the day, in the morning, at the end of the day. You can actually, if you're eating and you're finding this video and you say, hey, I want to do one meal a day properly, and you follow all my advice, you might be stuffed on pizza and tacos and who knows what. You can weigh at the end of the day with your clothes on, with the heaviest clothes on, and you can say, here's my starting weight. And you can record that weight. Every other time on the weekly weigh-in, you're not going to do that. You're going to weigh right when you get out of the shower, after a bowel movement, in the morning, before you've eaten anything, so that you get an accurate reading. But right now, your initial weigh-in, it can just be the fun one. Do an initial weigh-in. Be prepared to weigh weekly thereafter. Why is this such an important thing? Why have I talked so much about this over the years? Because if you weigh every day, and I talked about this on the last tutorial, if you weigh every day, you're invariably going to see that your weight fluctuates. One day you may be 3 pounds heavier than the day before. And if you're trying to lose weight, it can be very discouraging to look at the scale and say, oh my God, I'm 0.5 pounds heavier, even if it's only 0.5 pounds. So to prevent that, you weigh weekly, pick a certain day and stick with it. Don't vary. Do that every day, every set day of the week. So Monday morning, as soon as you get up, regardless of whether it's morning proper or morning for you, just stick with it. If you can, use the same scale. With that, set a goal weight range. That's what you do right now. You pick a goal weight range and know that it will change with time. My first one, as mentioned in the last presentation, was 300 pounds. I just wanted to be under 300 pounds. I was 363. And so that's why this is so important. But it will change, and you can do this. You can change your goal weight as often as you want, so long as it's something that is doable. You want to make it doable so that you can see progress. Do not pick a goal weight that is 200 pounds under where you are if you're morbidly obese, because that's a very long way to go. Instead, make it 50 pounds or 25 pounds under where you are. And every time you hit a goal, appreciate it. I don't know why that's profound wisdom, but it is very serious, and people just don't do it. So learn to be people of goals. There's a lot about SMART goals online, specific, measurable, actionable, and time bound goals that you can actually do, repeatable and time bound. I think it is SMART goals. There's so much to say on this, and then record your losses. This is another thing I didn't do that I think that you should do. Record your losses, and one of the reasons you want to do that each week is so that you can see a larger number coming off on the scale. It's amazing what 7 days of fasting can do. You'll have a much bigger loss at the end of 7 days versus the very next day. So follow my advice there and get set up and weigh yourself. Number 4, know what you are up against. You have entered a no rabbit zone. Now, here's what I mean by this. Very often, people that come to me for coaching usually, or sometimes in the comments on YouTube or during a live presentation, they'll come up to me and they'll say something like, well, hey, Joe, I'm about to do a 5-day water fast, and then I want to transition into OMAD. Is that okay? Or they'll say, I wanted to do a kiwi-only fast for 3 days, and then I wanted to do a dry fast, and then I wanted to do some... And they'll always give me some variation of my plan that is not my plan. Now, as Terry Silver's character said to Daniel LaRusso on Karate Kid, are you here to teach or be taught? Stop doing stuff like that. Do not chase rabbits. Know what you are up against, meaning you need to listen to what I'm telling you here and quit doing your own thing. I'm talking to those of you who are struggling. If you're struggling, you need to hear what I'm saying, and you need to do what I'm telling you. Don't jump ahead. It was so funny. I was in high school, and we had a coach who challenged us to be able to bench the bar 100 times. And of course, it's just a typical Olympic bar that you crank out bench press reps. And I had my friend, a Jewish guy, he could bench about 250, and I think I was less strong than him. I was about 225. The coach said, I want each of you to do that 100 times. Well, we said, being the little arrogant jerks we said, sure, we can do that. Well, neither of us could. It turns out it's very difficult to bench just the bar 100 times. And what we were sitting there and saying was, oh, we got this. We can bench that. Why don't we just put a 5 on each side? And the coach said, no, I want to see you bench the bar 100 times. Do 100 reps with that bar. Well, we couldn't do it. And the reason we couldn't do it was because we weren't even up for the challenge, and we didn't know it because we weren't willing to listen. So what do I mean by you've entered a no rabbit zone? Meaning you're not going to chase rabbits. You're not going to try other diets. You're not going to do crash diets. You're not going to do other fasting protocols. You're going to stay with the 1 meal a day plan as it is presented here. That's very important to realize. Again, look at this as a sensei giving you instruction. You don't go there and just tell the sensei what to do. So please pay attention to that. I can't stress that enough. So let's move on. Now we're going to get into the actual steps. The first step is to pick an OMAD mealtime. The importance of the eating window cannot be overstressed. You want to pick an eating window. It's a 4-hour block of time, and it's the time in which you're going to consume your meal. You can eat your meal at any point within this allotted time frame, but you're not going to eat all throughout it. So don't mistake that. You're going to eat within it. This is to accommodate life's many headaches and hectic schedule changes. Now, keep in mind, I thought this was important enough to actually make this a thing. There's a block of time that you want to keep around 4 hours because things being what they are in life, you're going to run into a situation where you're not going to be able to do it. And I'm thinking of an anesthesiologist I know who was about to eat his daily meal, but he got called into surgery because they had an emergency situation at his hospital. I know a night auditor, and there was a rush, and she had to go and check people into the hotel, and that made her meal break. For her meal break, she had to take it later. And she was a night worker and she ate her meal at about 4 a.m. And that was what she did. I'm thinking of many such situations. You have clients, you have wedding planners, I've coached 1,000+ people now, and one of the things that they will tell you is it's very difficult to be on time with your day. And the more busy you are, those of you who are in the professional world, it's even harder because you know how your time is valuable. Your time is money. Why does this even matter? Because if you don't honor the eating window, you will invariably eat/overeat within the time frame, thus hindering your efforts. What do I mean by that? I mean you're going to start a trend where you start eating the meal later or earlier each day. So let's say you do a fast until you start at 11 a.m. and you get to 11 a.m. the next day. And then the next day comes around and your body's starting to play the Hunger Games on you. So what do? When you get up in the morning, you're so hungry, you decide to start eating right when you get up, whereas the window doesn't open till 11. And as a result of that, what you're going to start doing is you're going to start eating later and later, and you're going to start playing that mental game where you start redoing your schedule. You don't do that with OMAD. You pick a meal, an OMAD mealtime, and you stick with it. Now, here's a cautionary tale. The internet is filled with stories of failed intermittent fasters. It just is. You can look at all sorts of people who now consider it a fad because since OMAD has gone mainstream, because of the efforts of this channel mostly, it has, but you hear testimonies and people who don't know how to manage their eating window. But there's another danger here. There's another danger in, if you misunderstand this, you're going to eat all throughout your window. You don't want to do that either. I guess you can, but you don't do that for the purposes of this plan. The importance of the eating window is simply to nail down a consistent daily meal time that you are going to fall back upon as time goes by. So please keep that in mind. We have completed step 1. We're going to go to step 2. Now, observe the daily feast. This is going to be really simple. Eat once a day, either a carb-dominant or a fat-dominant meal. Real food is always preferred. Let's stop now and address the fact that in this presentation, I'm not going to be addressing the types of food that you need to be eating. I'm just going to say, let your meals be real and let them be carb-dominant or fat-dominant. If you start playing the game where you say, I have to eat certain kinds of food, you put yourself in dieter's prison, which is dieter's hell, where your mind says, oh, I can never have that anymore. My house, woe is me. And you start to play that depravity game where you don't feel like you are going to make it. There's no need to vilify food, folks, because food is just a thing. It doesn't have an immortal essence like you do, or an essence, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have the ability to weigh values and decisions the way you do. So you don't blame your food, you just eat your food. I have a ratio on this, and I have videos on carb-dominant meal versus fat-dominant meals. Whichever you can digest more easily, you should eat. This is all I'm going to say about food. Well, I'll say one other thing. If you eat a lot of stuff like chips and breads, which I less recommend, less being the operative word, you're going to find that they absorb B vitamins. So if you're prone to canker sores and if you're prone to illness or sickness or issues with your metabolism, you're going to find that they get worse when you eat a lot of bready, junky, carby foods. And I say carby in the sense of not all carbs are equal. Rice and pasta and stew and potatoes, those are good by and large, but less so pasta. But real food, which I think we all know what that is pretty easy to understand. It's anything you would make a meal out of, but you wouldn't make a meal out of Cheetos or cupcakes. You wouldn't do it. You'd feel terrible. You'd be awful. So all that I ask is that you put very little effort. Just try to make sure it's real and either eat carb dominant or fat dominant. It doesn't matter if it's, quote, healthy or not. And on the same hand, when we get to eating during the fast, I'm going to talk about this, but it doesn't matter if it's healthy or not, ultimately. You just want food that has nutritional value. And you're going to do that once a day, which is why you're going to pick a time. Which is what we've talked about. It can be morning, noon, or night, but it's got to be one of those times. Eat as close as possible to the same time within the window every day. This kind of belongs with our previous heading, our previous step, but it also belongs here. Ideally, if you're eating at 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. or 6 p.m., there's no magic. in setting a time, but there is consistency because your body will start to make you hungry right when that mealtime comes around again. You can see the difference. Focus not on the hunger, but on what time you first get hungry as the window rolls around. You'll notice that after a few days. For a while, your body's going to be fighting hunger, and you're going to be just saying, "Oh, I feel so starving." But ultimately, you'll realize that doesn't become an issue until 2 to 3 hours before your mealtime. And the more consistent you are with your body will act like a faithful friend and will come along and will help you. Because it'll make you hungry then. It won't make you hungry all the time. One plate. So we have, as you've already gone ahead of me and read, one meal, 1 plate, 1 hour, 1 beverage. The essential fours of OMAD. 10 and 1/8 inch in size, or a comparably large bowl. Now I've done very little talking about bowls on OMAD because it's harder to one step them. One plate, you already know most plates are the same size. If it's a normal standard size dinner plate, it's 10 and 1/8 inches. So you can pretty much eyeball that very easily. If you want to eat out of bowls, you can. The danger when you're using multiple bowls and containers is you start to get into higher calorie consumption and you lose the de facto calorie counting portion that you get that you have on the plan that I've laid it out. So if you start eating, it's like eating out of going back for second servings and eatings out of bags or containers or platters. If you start doing things like that, those of you who are true food addicts are going to find a way to cheat. You're going to find a way to get all of those extra calories on all of those plates. And in turn, you're going to slow down your weight loss. At this point, let me stop and emphasize, if you are a true food addict, you're going to find a way to get that food. But let's say you're just eating all of that food once a day. Let's say you're not doing very well and you're not honoring the 1 plate rule. You're still eating too much. That's still better than what you were doing. Eating multiple times a day is always worse than eating once, in nearly all cases, because your body makes more insulin, and insulin is the fat storage hormone. It's the thing that has gotten you in the horrible shape that you're in, or likely in. No second servings or eating out of bags or containers. Follow the 1 plate rule, and what you will find is your calories naturally get limited to around 1,300. Now, throughout the years on the forums and on YouTube comments, people have tried to take me to task on that. And they say, yeah, well, what if you just put a whole bunch of sugar and candy and cakes all over there and marinaras like the Chinese foods and sauces, you can get it. Yeah, perhaps you can, but not by enough. If you stay with 1 plate of food, even if it has greasy Chinese food or Mexican food, you're going to find that it's pretty close to those calories. I've not been able to get more than about 1,400 calories on a plate of food that I would want. And again, consistency starts to really matter here because you find that you have the ability your body will start to establish a pattern. And you just can't get very much if you follow the 1 plate rule. If you're worried about getting too little, then you have the wrong outlook. Let me just say that before we move to the next point. You need to understand you're not going to die. You're not going to starve. All condiments and additives should be on the plate. This includes stuff like chips. If you're going to have stuff like chips, no food purism here, by the way. No need to be a food purist. Because if you go the food purism right and you never have any fat on that plate, or you never have any, quote, what would be called, quote, junk food, you're going to find that you have too few calories. And it is very easy to overestimate calories as surely as it is underestimate calories. A little bit of a free tip note there. But everything should be on the plate. Follow that rule. Challenge yourself to follow that rule. Everything should be on the plate. Nothing should be higher than 3 inches. Nothing should be falling off the side. That means you have your napkins, you have your daily beverage, your caloric beverage. Everything, when you go to sit down to eat, you're done. Now let's go to 1 hour. Eat and be done with it. Example, I eat my meal in under 20 minutes most days. How long does it take you? Ask yourself right now, how long does it take you to eat your meal? Does it take an hour and a half? Are you a social eater? You sit there and talk and don't really eat? Personally, I like to eat in solitude because I don't like people to bother me, and I like to scarf down my meals. Usually it's around 18 minutes. I've actually timed myself eating, and I have found that on most days I eat standing up and I eat under 20 minutes. Now, that's kind of less true sometimes. Especially if I eat a larger meal, I'll go up to 25 minutes. If I am eating from multiple plates and bowls and getting more calories, then I'm going to take longer. It might take 25 or 27, 30 minutes. But usually it's well done before 30 minutes. For those of you who do not eat standing up, you should try it. Not only will it burn more calories and help you to absorb the sugar content of the food you are taking in, but it's kind of a nice habit, and it gets you back in the frame of keeping your utilitarian function of eating in check. You want to eat out of utilitarian need. You don't want to eat because you're lusting after the food, that you're craving the food, that you're yearning and thirsting. You want to break out of that mold, and that is what the time restriction aspect of the one meal a day platform will do. Consider walking right after the meal. Please write that down for those of you who are diabetic. I really, really want you to get in the habit of walking right after your meal. That is so very important because it's going to help you absorb the sugar that you've taken in from the food. I don't care if it's a low sugar meal or if it's not, it's going to have a really good effect. And this is not a fast walk. This is what I have come to call over the years a therapeutic walk. It's a walk where you go around outside, you look at the scenery, you walk around your block at a very slow, comfortable pace, and then contemplate the things that you're doing and what you've done. Even if it's 5 minutes, just a simple stroll will augment the standing you've done if you eat your meal standing up. If you don't want to eat your meal standing up, don't worry about it. But definitely consider taking a walk right after the meal, or at least standing and doing squats after the meal. You can do it really slowly, but what you will find is those of you who are diabetic, when they get started on OMAD, very often what they will do is they'll notice their blood sugar goes higher versus the little meals they came from when they would just nibble throughout the day and their blood sugar wouldn't go as high, but then they couldn't manage it. But then when the OMAD comes, they start to realize, oh, they're dealing with this blood sugar wave. But what you will find is each day it starts to come down. And the more that happens, you'll start to see progress. It may be a month. It may be 6 weeks, the full 6 weeks, which is what I'm asking you to give me to really assess your progress. But if you do this, you're going to notice your blood sugar responds immediately. So those of you who are diabetics, take heart. In the vast majority of cases, diabetes will either go away or almost go away with proper one meal a day plan. Consider setting up a 5-minute buffer before beginning. I'll try to put all these videos I'm going to reference in here. I had a video on the 5-minute buffer. This is for when you come to the meal and you're still adapting and you're really, really hungry. You sit down, you feel like you're just going to go crazy. Like you get that fire. And that means you haven't adapted yet. You're still burning sugar. So your body ideally should be adjusting to OMAD and learning to burn off what you eat quickly and get you back into fasting. So burning your own body fat. But if that hasn't happened yet, you haven't done it long enough, your body's not as efficient. So what's going to happen is you need to set up a buffer. So let's say your meal your meal window opens at 11:30 a.m. and you've got till 3:30 p.m., which is the 4-hour time block there. Well, what you can do is to start and set a timer on your phone. I did a video on this, and mentally break yourself of that desire to fix. And it's a strong desire, but if you do it, if you break it, you won't keep struggling with it, because eventually your body's gonna get whipped into shape, and you're not gonna feel that way anymore. It's only when you let it get out of hand, and you've had it years. You've had these problems. Am I right? You've let your body go, and you've eaten when you're hungry, you've eaten when you're bored, you've eaten to take back the power, you've eaten because you're depressed, you've eaten to compensate because you didn't get what you want in life. All of these horrible habits. You got divorced, you had a death in the family, something happened, and you would always eat as a crutch. Say it ain't so. So you can heal yourself. One beverage. Between 12 ounces and 32 ounces is best. This can be a caloric beverage. So if you like sweet tea and you don't want to give up sweet tea, you go right ahead and have a sweet tea at the meal. So you've got one caloric beverage, you've got your plate of food with anything you choose, and you're empowered to, you're going to do really well. Now, what I have recommended and what I actually used to lose weight was 2 tablespoons full of juice. I usually didn't do the water. Some people don't like juice, so they're so afraid of juice they just use water. They put apple cider vinegar in it. To me, that I've done it, but it's never really been a thing. You can also use rice wine vinegar, and the ideal time for that is at the meal. Have your juice, apple juice, whatever. Use that as your beverage, your 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. When you do that, what it does is it increases stomach acidity, which further increases digestion. Do you see why this is a good deal? Why this is a big deal? Because as you get older, and those of you who are older can hear me loud and clear on this too, especially, is you lose that stomach acidity. And that's why when you eat and you're 50-something, it sits in your stomach a while. And you feel like you're not even digesting anymore. When does that happen? Like 48? It seems like that starts happening where your meals just take a lot more out of you. You're less sharp. Well, this is one of the things that will fix that. You do not have to do the apple cider vinegar or the rice wine vinegar if you do not want to. Personally, it is one of the best recommendations I have, and I would really rather you did it. But that is a decision you make. Regardless of how you approach this, remember the guidelines I've given you here and understand why this is so incredibly important, because this will lock things in step, and you'll feel so much better, and you will do so much better. The weight is going to come off. Step 3, observe the daily fast. The daily fast has begun. Once the feeding window has closed, all calories of any type, fat or sugar, are off limits. Please make a mental note of that right now. Gum is also off limits, even sugar-free gum. I don't know how many people still ask me if they can have either sugar-free gum, or they ask me if they can have coffee with cream in it. Unbelievable. You can't. There are certain people online who tell you that fat is fine. They're wrong. You cannot do that, because your body does still absorb that, and you will gain weight from that. So do not listen to those people. If you really need, you want more than the non-caloric beverages I've given you here as examples, try chewing ice. If you really need that gustatory feeling of something in your jaw, keep your beverages handy. Make sure you rely upon them, but remember the feeding window has closed. 11:30, 2:30, or 3:30, what is that? Roughly 4 hours there. Once that last time, that meal window has closed, you need to be done with all of your eating for the day. You need to be done drinking. That includes your drink, your beverage at the meal. It needs to be finished well in advance of that. The feeding window opens, but the feeding window is designed to be within 1 hour of your eating window. And when you're done, you've got 23 hours of fasting that you're getting back into. You will sabotage your efforts if you do not observe the daily fast. That's what this is all about, right? Water, mineral or tonic water, coffees, all kinds without cream, teas, all kinds, artificially sweetened drinks are okay. So you can have Diet Dr. Pepper, you can have Diet Coke if that's your thing. You can go and meet your friends at the cafe and have a lemon water. You're totally okay with that. There's not enough sugar in that to hurt you. You can use those sorts of things and other beverages throughout the day, so long as they do not contain sugar or calories. Those who are out there online saying that artificially sweetened drinks get an insulin reaction are wrong, and they are telling untruths. Please do not. I don't know if I would have been able to finish my journey had it not been for Diet Dr. Pepper and Diet Pepsi, because I did rely on those during the fast. They do not break a fast. There's videos on this from myself and others. Usually I don't deal with it academically, but there are studies falsely claiming that some people will gain weight from them. You will not gain weight from them. But the point is made. Your non-calorie beverages need to be a part of your life, and they need to be with you. Once the window closes, that means no cheating whatsoever until the splurge day, which is going to be the next topic. The daily fast has begun. Step 4, observe the biweekly or monthly splurge days. So let's talk about splurge days, and let's start by talking about why I took them out of the plan. I didn't take them out of the plan. I quit talking about them for a good while because a lot of people misused them and or didn't understand them. They just went willy-nilly crazy and started to pig out. A splurge day, let's talk about why a splurge day is needed. A splurge day is simply a day in which you do not restrict your calories, whether in liquid or solid form. So you can eat them all at once in one sitting or all throughout a day as you are going about doing things. So whatever your waking period is, you wake up at 7 a.m., you go to bed at 10 p.m. That whole day, if you deem it a splurge day, is one day. And it is never closer to another splurge day than 2 weeks for most people. More on that in a minute. But let's talk about what a splurge day does before we get ahead of ourselves. Number 1, it upregulates your metabolism during prolonged fasting. One of the criticisms of fasting is that over time, it slows down your metabolism. That's not really true. It's sort of true in that your body, your metabolism does take a little bit of a dive, but it starts to recover and starts to figure out what you're doing. So you don't really need to worry about that. But if you just add in the occasional cheat day, what it has the effect of doing is enhancing your metabolic sensitivity to insulin. So in other words, your body learns what it's like to continue to rev up. If you're always at baseline, then that's going to be a problem. That's just the same way it is if you're always in activity in hyper mode, fight or flight mode, then that's bad too. Not getting enough sleep and getting too much sleep are the same problem. Upregulates your metabolism during prolonged fasting. Number 2, allows you to begin to experiment with the weight maintenance portion of your journey down the road. Don't worry about this yet. Just know that this is something that you're preparing for, because what you're going to do in the future is you're going to start adding in more splurge days to get you to where you're closer to maintenance. You're going to experiment with eating more. You're going to experiment with exercise. All of those things. We're going to do this on a different video, not here. But that's the baby steps. You're going to learn that it's okay to let go once in a while because it's healthy to let go. The same way it's healthy to not care. Sometimes you need to not care. You need to be able to let go. Number 3, it allows you to see that you really don't need excessive quantities of food after all. So you've had all this time, every 2 weeks or a month, and you're going all this time, and then you're splurging, and then you're going back the next day faithfully, and you realize, I don't feel good when I eat a lot. Bingo. Now you're learning how you're getting to see for yourself more dramatically how your body's rebuilding itself. And that object lesson can be very powerful. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing or listening to your voice recording or seeing one of your own presentations or seeing the effect that you have, and you realize that you're doing something really good. So 3 good reasons for what splurge days do. A splurge is not required, but is a very good idea. And when I say not required, it really should be considered somewhat required. But I know that some people can't handle them, and this is why I stopped talking about them, because some people would start to splurge, and then the next day they would splurge, and they would let themselves go. Well, that, friend, is a problem with your commitment and your priorities. There's no splurging when it's not a splurge day. A splurge day should be once a month or once every 2 weeks for most people. People who are younger and have faster metabolisms or are very active can experiment with weekly splurges or several days per week. That is for like a very active child who has a fast metabolism and can finish out the day like a hummingbird. The beauty of OMAD is if you do OMAD 2 days a week and the rest of the days you eat normally, and you're not overweight, you're not suffering from health problems, your metabolism isn't stalled, you don't have any metabolic disorders, your body's going to power through and you're going to do even better. If you do 3 days fasting versus the 4 days doing what you want, you're going to do even better. And then 4 days and so forth and so on until you have more fasting days than feasting days. You get the point. Your body's going to respond the more sensitive you are. So for most people, though, who are taking 1 meal a day seriously, you're not going to do that. You're just going to allow yourself one splurge day every 2 weeks, For normal people of normal health, and for people that are of lesser health, you can do one splurge day every month without consequence. Never put 2 splurge days back to back. Never do that, because then you start to program your body to go back to excessive tendencies, and your body learns very fast. And it's so crazy how when your body has to scale up, it has to scale up insulin, it has to scale up bile production, it has to scale everything back up after you do that several days. And that's going to make it really hard to get back into fasting. Plus, you're going to be ashamed because you're going to put all that weight back on. You're going to have all that heavy food in your stomach, which means if your splurge day happens to be close to a weigh day, you're going to be really discouraged. Are you visualizing why we're doing this here? A splurge is not an uncontrolled splurge. And you never do a splurge day on the fly. You plan them. It can be a birthday, it can be Christmas, it can be Thanksgiving. I remember one of the first splurge days I had was eating candy at Halloween. I said, I'm going to eat all kind. I'm going to sit there with Michaela and just eat a bunch of Kit Kats and stuff. And I did, and I was like, ugh, I didn't need that, but I told myself I would, and I did. And I ate the whole day. Then I ate hot dogs, I ate a bunch of stuff. And of course, I'm always reminded of the fact that I don't need to do that, which is, again, what the splurge day is for. You always plan a splurge day. That's what makes a splurge day not a gluttony day. Otherwise, you're just an out-of-control eater. Please see the difference there. Observe the splurge day, but understand it only plays a relation to your other strict days. So you have 14 strict days, mission critical. The first 14 days are mission critical. You can't fail. You can't go back. And then the longer you go, you have that carefully placed splurge day that is very nicely placed, with thought, with strategic mindfulness. That's what's going to change your game, not anything else. So we have reached the end, and let me give you some guidance on the way out here. Progress occurs at different rates for different people. Obviously, if you have a thyroid problem, if you have PCOS, if you have diabetes, if you are 55 or older, there will be differences in your body. There will be challenges that perhaps you have that others don't have. That's not to deter you, because if that sort of thing deters you, that's, again, a priority problem. That is something that you struggle with that has nothing to do really with your body. It has to do with your mind. Because people who want success, people who are successful, are not people who allow obstacles to stand in their way. A physical difference in your body is just an engineering obstacle. It's a tactical need to make a diversion to get to the same route. Progress occurs at different rates for different people. Weight loss averages between 1 pound to 3 pounds per week. That's about the average. A woman will lose 1 to 1.5 pounds per week consistently, sometimes more. A man can lose up to 3 or more pounds per week. Yes, there are differences in men and women. However, I have seen women lose more than I did. So again, these are averages. But if you don't hit those averages, don't allow yourself to be discouraged by it, because it's something that will continue to change with time. And as I covered in my video on the weight loss honeymoon, just because you have weeks go by and you don't see weight loss does not mean that it's time to stop. Serious health marker improvements, such as blood sugar levels or cholesterol, take longer to see results. So again, you don't stop because it takes longer. Give 1 meal a day 6 weeks to see that it is the ideal path for you. That's what I'm asking for. For those of you who haven't tread this path before, give me 6 weeks. Carefully, faithfully managed 6 weeks. No cheating, no carelessness, no playing it fast and loose, sticking to the plan as I've revealed it here. That's what's going to make or break the difference. And what you're going to see is your path is, you've pretty much already got your weight loss. You just don't see it in your physical body yet. Hang on my every word. Why did I put that? You see the guy on the cliff there hanging off right under that cute little bear. The guy's holding on for dear life. And I say this because regardless of how you found this video, again, as I started to say on the outset, you need to listen to me if you're in a bad spot where you've been a chronic dieter and you failed and you keep failing and you keep chasing rabbits and you keep trying to find what works for you. You need to listen to what I'm saying. Hang on for dear life, just like this poor guy on this cliff here. You cannot afford to lose, especially the older you get, the worse your health becomes. You're going to lose the opportunity to make the corrections that you need to make. That's when it's time to listen to me. And let's say you're just doing this for spiritual guidance and you want some wisdom, you want to increase your wisdom. Well, this also does that. It brings you closer to your higher power. Fasting does. You don't have to hang on my every word. You can kind of do the plan as you want. You can always do anything as you want. I'm not the boss of you. But hang on my every word. Those of you who know you need to, please don't deviate. Hear me loud and clear on that. And as we conclude, I included reference to Galatians 5:23, meekness, forbearance, and long-suffering, some of the virtues of the Spirit. Against such there is no law. That includes self-control. That's part of that wonderful list there, the part that is applicable to us today. Temperance and self-control is part of the fruits of the Spirit and is something that is powerful. That it's the thing that allows you to win this battle, whereas all of the diet pills and pumps and exercise equipment and exercise mats and all of the garbage that you see advertised, the fad diets, all of these things are going to fail where self-control will succeed. Happy fasting, folks. Please reach out if you have any questions.